Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Market Futures. Happy Easter Sunday to everybody. Hope everyone had a good long weekend. It was long, and hopefully it was good for everybody. It's been a while since we streamed. Last time we were live was Thursday, right? It's been a minute. It has been a minute, but we're back. We are back. Futures are red, but also kind of flat. I mean, nothing too crazy going on with futures. We'll talk about a couple things that we have in the headlines. There's not that much that's going crazy. So really, I think when we get into the market open tomorrow, we're going to see a lot of different things happen. This week, we have a lot of different types of data we have to look at as well, which is going to be really important. But overall, as you can see from either the thumbnail or across the board right here, you've got futures that are basically 0.5% after hours, or like, I guess this is kind of into the overnight markets, which is now the VIX is up 7%, which is a little aggressive. And we'll talk about some of the headlines that might be causing the volatility index to spike. But that's what we got on futures. The Dow Jones down about 0.5%, S&P down about 1/3, NASDAQ down about 0.62, and then small caps down 0.29. And that's what we got. How's everybody doing? How was everybody's weekend? I hope everyone had fun. I spent the weekend doing something interesting that I think people will will get a kick out of. You might have already seen my tweet about it, but we'll talk about it in a second. This camera zoomed up really close. Hold on. Let me zoom it down a little bit. Okay, I think that's better. It's like really close up. All right, that's better. Yeah, there you go. That's a lot better. A lot better. Tess, what's up? Richard, Dennis, Jill, Spencer, Sultan, Matthew, Ed, what's up? Crazy how Friday sucked so bad without the market. Dude, I will tell you guys what I spent doing on Friday. It was weird, bro. I was just like, what is there to do? I dropped my sister off to the airport because she was traveling. But then after that, I was just like, I have the whole day. I've never had the whole day to do nothing. So yeah, I'll tell you guys what I did, but curious what everyone else did. Sean, what's up? Bay Ray, what's up? Simo, Jasper, hello. Patrice, what's up? Midwest, what's up? The stock market is open tomorrow. So we will have the open same time as always, 8:45 a.m. Eastern tomorrow. Joseph, Marcus, Armand, Joey, Paul, what's up? Thank you everybody for being here. The volume is on and off. Is audio good? Is audio good or not? If it's only bad for one of you, then it might be your YouTube. Might just have to refresh the app. It's been doing that since last week, but I think audio should be okay. In about 11 minutes, we're gonna have futures open up, or at least overnight markets open up. Everything's probably gonna be slightly down to maybe slightly flat up, but I mean, based on what we see in the futures, hopefully we'll have not crazy damage. We got some Trump tweets that we'll talk about. We have some Fed talk, some goolsbie stuff that we'll talk about. We have Tesla earnings as well. Yeah, flat. Essentially, I think it would be flat as well. We have Tesla earnings as well this week that I forgot about until this morning. I was like, oh yeah, we do have Tesla earnings. And then we have Google this week. Tesla and Google, those are the main ones. We have a bunch of other companies. Last week was Netflix, which they absolutely crushed it. Stock didn't really reflect too much momentum, but we did have Netflix, Google, T-Mobile, Tesla, Bristol Myers Squibb, Xfinity. I mean, not a lot of crazy important companies. AT&T, Boeing. I mean, these companies are important, but it's not like super big tech. Tesla and Google, those are the big ones. Tesla and Google. And then we have Intel. That's going to be important. ServiceNow, IBM, Chipotle. But Tesla and Google are going to be the kind of main ones that we have to look at. Papa K, thank you for the $20 super chat. Appreciate that. I'm so glad you are back. I needed my fix. Yeah, a lot of you guys kept saying that on Friday. You're messaging me like, I need my fix. What's going on? I was like, dude, I need my fix too. I need to go live. But thankfully, we did get that interview out that a lot of you seem to enjoy with Louis Mosley from Palantir. So I got a lot of good feedback on that interview. That was a really fun one. It was a 30-minute interview of him essentially explaining the Palantir thesis for Europe, which I thought was really exciting. If anyone didn't see it, you could just go to my YouTube. That's the last video posted. And he's an awesome guy. So I think that was hopefully something good to just sit with on Friday, even if there was no live streams. Okay, so this is what I did over the weekend. I've realized that I am officially getting old based on what I did over the long weekend. I realize I'm officially getting old. As a man, I feel like I'm officially getting old. Naman says, my girlfriend is having a bad day. Can you please say, hey, Alex, happy Easter and hope you feel better. Hey, Alex, happy Easter. Hope you feel better. And your boyfriend is awesome because he is watching my streams. So if you are putting up with me in the background while you're watching him, I hope you feel better and happy Easter. Anyway, on my long weekend, what did I do? Well, Naman probably cuddled with his girlfriend all weekend. I didn't do that. I was cuddling with World War II documentaries. Okay. This is what I did over the long weekend. I freaking started binging. I don't know how this happened. You click on one video and then you go into a freaking spiral. I binged like 10 hours of North Korea documentaries, World War II documentaries, and the Cuban Missile Crisis documentaries. I can't even explain how engaged I was in these documentaries. I mean, when I mean I was engaged, I mean, and I seriously mean this. My phone was not even with me, bro. I didn't even know where my phone. I was just sitting on my bed watching documentary after documentary after documentary about how Kim Jong-un got to power, about how close we were to blowing up the entire world with the Cuban Missile Crisis and a massive nuclear war. I learned a lot about Hiroshima and Nagasaki when we dropped the first atomic bomb in Japan. And I learned a lot about World War II and like how World War II happened and how Soviet Russia came to be, how we defeated Nazi Germany, all this. Like, I was honed in, bro, the whole weekend. Like, even today, I watched another couple documentaries. I don't know what it is, but the reason I say I think I'm getting older is because there was this meme that I saw on what platform? On YouTube. Just like random. YouTube has like all those like PBS and National Geographic, all those companies, they post like the documentaries on the platform. Yeah, so I just started binging those. And there's this great meme someone posted that a man gets older when he starts getting interested in World War II or starts wanting to like smoke meats. And like now I'm also getting to the point where I want to go buy some steaks and start smoking meat. Like I really want, that didn't sound right, but I want to start grilling steaks and like becoming a connoisseur when it comes to when it comes to like meats and stuff like that, because I'm seeing all these YouTube videos about like people grilling steaks and stuff, and I want to learn how to do that too. And I want to learn everything about World War II, like literally everything about World War II. Let me see if I can find that meme real quick. It's usually by the time you're in your late 30s to early 40s, you start getting interested in World War II and like grilling meats. But nah, I think at 27 it's happening. So look, after turning 35, men must make a decision to either get really into World War II history or really into smoking various meats. I'm there for both of them. Has anyone ever had that phase? Has anyone ever had that phase of just like you're really into World War II and like what happened? I don't know what it is, bro. Like, as for some reason this weekend, and I've got a lot of history in me just from this weekend of like 10 to 15 hours of stuff that I learned. And my takeaways are, thank goodness the United States has nuclear weapons. Second of all, thank goodness I wasn't born in North Korea. I think we take for granted as American citizens just the lottery of birth we were given to not be born in freaking North Korea, dude. Like, it's bad. It's not good out there. It's not a place I would want to be. And then third of all, the ideological divide between capitalism and communism has resulted in a completely fractured world. And ironically, one of the headlines we got today was some more Chinese drills, military drills near Taiwan, calling them essentially a warning against separatism and for U.S. support of the island's independence. I am more convinced, based off the history that I learned over the weekend, that China is going to invade Taiwan. It's probably not going to happen this year, probably not going to happen in the next couple of years, but it's going to happen. I feel like it is inevitable. It's going to, just like we didn't think Russia would actually do it, and then they did it because they were always going to do it. They just needed the opportunity, and then they did it. I think China is eventually going to do it. And I don't know what the world's going to do when that happens. I really don't. I went even deeper into the Russia-Ukraine war this weekend and tried to understand more about what's going on there. So I don't know. It was this is what kept me engaged this weekend in terms of doing something and actually caring about what was going on. Yes, this is my historical reference era. That's a fact. I tried to watch Goodfellas. I got bored in 5 minutes, bro. I was more interested in a National Geographic documentary around how Kim Jong-un got to power than freaking Goodfellas, dude. It was boring, dude. I don't know how you guys like that movie so much. Like I'm telling you, when it was time to learn about North Korea, I was ready to just stay put and not even touch my phone. Bitcoin right here, 85,140. This one's barely down, even though the Nasdaq's probably going to open down 1/3%, which is incredible. Bitcoin actually showing some decoupling from the indices right here. But yeah, I was pretty interested in all of that this weekend. As long as we rely on Taiwan for semis, China won't invade. I hope, at least. I think China's economy is the reason they're not going to invade right now. But the idea that they aren't going to plan to do it one day, I don't know. I think they're going to do it. They're not going to do it right now, but I think there is definitely a world in which, potentially in my lifetime, like where they decide it's time to try, which is basically what Russia did in 2022. And they're continuing to try to do what they're doing there. Which we do have some Russia-Ukraine updates. We have some updates in the context of what Trump is drafting up in terms of a concession, or in terms of like a ceasefire agreement. Will Ukraine agree to it? I don't know. I'll talk more about that in a little bit. But Ukraine will have the rest of the week to decide if they want to agree to what Trump came up with and what the White House came up with in terms of a ceasefire agreement. Have you watched Inglorious Bastards? Inglorious Bastards? No, I haven't seen this. I've heard of this movie. I haven't seen this, though. I've heard of it, but I've not seen it. You have to talk about Palantir AI FDs. Yes, we'll talk about that. We had some interesting Palantir updates over the weekend as well. Twitter was very interesting. If anyone was seeing some of the beef I was getting into on Twitter over the weekend with some Silicon Valley legends. It was a weird weekend, bro. It was like I was at the gym and then I choose to respond to someone who said something about Palantir. Well, we'll talk about it later. And then I didn't realize what it would turn into, but it turned into something. So yeah, it was a very interesting weekend on X. But more importantly, I want to learn more about World War II. I think that's the new arc of knowledge that I want to ingest into my own LLM that is my brain. So seems like I'll be doing a lot more of that. All right, we got 30 seconds until things open. We'll see how everything looks. Again, futures are relatively red, not crazy red, but they are indeed red. Netflix ended up 3.39% after a monster quarter where they essentially raised and beat on all core guidance metrics that mattered: revenue, EPS, operating margins, etc. So stock, got a little 4% bump, but now it's a question if it can keep it. We got a bunch of Trump tariff tweets we'll talk about as well. That's maybe making futures go red, and we'll kind of see how that impacts the pre-markets once we get into that tomorrow morning. All right, here we go. Overnight markets are open. Let's take a look. We got some red. Nvidia down, wow, below 100. Holy crap. There she goes. All right, so there's Nvidia. Nvidia goes red. 99.85, that's down 2%. SoFi is up about 1% after hours. SoFi's green. The Qs are down 0.5%. S&P's down 1/3. Robinhood's down 0.19. By the way, Robinhood opened up every single NBA basketball playoff series that you can now bet on. So you can bet on the Lakers, the Memphis Grizzlies, the Warriors, everything on Robinhood now. So I think there's going to be a lot more momentum in contracts that get traded on Hood. Tesla right here down about 0.70%. That's down. Palantir is up a little bit, 0.34. Palantir continues to be green from last week. Upstart's down 1%. Dow Jones is up a little bit. United Healthcare is up a little bit. United Healthcare lost $125 billion on Friday. They were down about 22.38%. I would imagine that United would get a little bit of a boost after that. Google's down 0.21. SoFi's up a little bit, 0.64. Nvidia back up above 100, so it was 99.85 for just a little bit. S&P continues to fall down about 0.3. Q's down 0.3. Hood now down almost 0.5%. Google again down 0.11. Walmart's up a little bit. Target's up. Interesting. The retailers are up. Rocket Lab's up 1%, 1988. Intel's up a little bit. Micron's up a little bit. Enphase is up a little bit. Where is AMD? AMD is up 0.05. AMD is basically flat. Goldman Sachs is up a little bit. This is weird. You got some tech stocks that are red. most tech stocks that are green, the indices are red, and then you've got a lot of random financials and retailers that are green. Tesla goes down about 1% overnight. Palantir just went red, but basically it's flat. Semis are mixed. SMCI is green, even though nvidia is red, which is weird. Nvidia very close to being back below 100 again. Dell is up a little bit. Yes, Dell is up a little bit. Yeah, it's weird. Usually you would see a trend here, but that's not the case. Dell's up 2%. Dell usually doesn't go up when Micron goes down. I mean, all the semis kind of move with each other. Taiwan's flat. Taiwan semi. Qualcomm's up 0.26. ARM's up 0.28. Broadcom's down 0.5%. Intel down a third, and then SMCI right here up about 0.62. And that's pretty much what it's looking like. Hybrid Kid, thank you for the $10 super chat. Hey, Mitt, been watching since the days of a couple cents with Justin O, and we'll continue watching through the crazy days ahead. Appreciate you, bro. I actually was, one of those videos randomly popped up in my feed the other day, and I forgot I even did that show in 2022, dude. For those that remember that show, it was literally 3.5 years ago. I forgot I was hosting that show until that video popped up. So, yeah, I appreciate you being here. A lot of you guys kind of found me from that show so many years ago and have stayed. So, it's been a fun journey along the entire way. Google right here. All the Max 7s are red. NVIDIA's Tesla's leading them. Tesla's down 2. We'll talk about Tesla earnings coming up. NVIDIA down 1.2. Microsoft down a third. Meta's down a third. Meta 500 on the dot. Google right here 153. And then Apple down about 0.25. We will also talk about Elon unfollowing Bessent because he did, which is only leading to more I guess you can say fireworks in the White House that are going off. But Elon was with Trump this weekend. So Elon and Trump continue to be tight, even if Elon hates everyone who's advising Trump, including Navarro. All right, cool. So that's what we got in the overnight markets. Let's get into all the different topics that we have. Nothing too crazy. I mean, some stocks are down 1%. Some stocks are up 2%. There's not really a trend right here. Futures could flip green and everything could flip green. Futures could continue to hit red. Everything goes red. But as of now, it's a relatively flat overnight markets outside of Tesla, Nvidia, and the S&P down about 0.32% currently right now. Did you hear Schwab will offer crypto trading? I heard this headline 3 weeks ago. Yeah, if they do, that's a good thing. I mean, a lot of the legacy guys, Vanguard, Schwab, Fidelity, they haven't offered crypto for a long time. Yeah, I mean, it's just good for crypto, right? It's good for the overall volumes, good for the overall ability for more people to access crypto. So if they do, it will be competition for Robinhood, sure. But at the end of the day, I mean, consumers are going to pick whatever they want to pick. But if you're bullish Bitcoin long-term, yeah, you got more money coming into the system, which is not a bad thing. Okay, so let's get into our topics. Let's also, is WrestleMania going on tonight? You guys are talking about WrestleMania. Dude, I forgot WrestleMania was a thing. WrestleMania is on tonight. WrestleMania 41. Wow. I used to be obsessed with WrestleMania back in 2007, 2008. I used to be a big WWE fan. All right, I don't know who's competing. I don't know John Cena. I don't know anyone who's in WrestleMania anymore. I don't keep up with the WWE, but for those that are watching, hopefully it's fun. WrestleMania 41 night 2. It's 2 nights. There's a WrestleMania weekend. Okay, they didn't used to do that 10 years ago. This is different. John Cena versus Cody Rhodes. So I watched the Lakers game last night, and that was not the best for the Lakers. But yeah, I'm keeping up a little bit more with the NBA playoffs. But yeah, not too much more with WWE. They made it a weekend, huh? It's on Netflix. Wait, really? Holy crap! I might tune in later and watch it on Netflix. Yeah, usually it was pay-per-view when I was a kid. All right, cool. So we got Netflix this weekend as well. So we got WrestleMania this weekend. All right, so let's get into the different headlines we got. Couple different things that happened over the weekend. I think we'll start off with this this Wall Street Journal article that came out along with the Elon firing or Elon unfollowing Bessent news. So Wall Street Journal came out. The headline was juicy. We already had a crazy headline on Friday. What was the crazy headline on Friday? The crazy headline was Trump has already been talking with replacements for Jerome Powell because he wants to get rid of Powell because he wants a Fed chair that is going to lower rates. Obviously, that's illegal. You can't just literally get rid of a Fed chair, right? That's not how it works. And so he's already had backdoor meetings. Bessent has been the one apparently who's been telling Trump to like not do this because it would create massive instability in the markets. The second part to the story, which we learned over the weekend, was that I'll just read from here. So that morning, when Navarro was scheduled to meet with economic advisor Kevin Hassett in a different part of the White House, Bessent and Lutnick made their move, according to multiple people familiar with the intervention. They rushed into the Oval Office to see Trump and propose a pause on some of the tariffs without Navarro there to argue or push back. They knew that they had a tight window. The meeting with Bessent and Lutnick wasn't on Trump's schedule. The two men convinced Trump of the strategy to pause some of the tariffs and to announce it immediately to calm down the markets. They stayed until Trump tapped out on a Truth Social post, which surprised Navarro, according to one of the people familiar with the episode. Bessent and Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt almost immediately went to the cameras outside the White House to make a public announcement. Okay, so if this is true, based on what we had 2 weeks ago when Trump paused the tariffs for 90 days, apparently it was a spur-of-the-moment decision, which, by the way, I think a lot of us felt like it was. It didn't feel like some art of the deal master plan. And Navarro needed to leave the Oval Office for Bessent and Lutnick to make their move to get the president's attention, to then say, hey, buddy, you got to pause these tariffs because if not, the market, more particular the bond market, is going to go insane. I believe it, and the reason I believe it is because Navarro has been so gung-ho about tariffs. This is why I think Elon was starting to come out against Navarro and be like super aggressive toward them, trying to get the president's attention implicitly by saying, hey, this guy is an idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Elon called him dumber than a sack of bricks, and then he apologized to the sack of bricks for that insult. I would imagine if Elon's not a fan of him, Bessent and Lutnick are not fans of him either. And so it makes sense that they needed an opportunity for Navarro to be gone, which, again, I don't know why Trump gives Navarro this much importance, but apparently he does, to convince Trump to finally make a decision to go in the opposite direction. And if that's the case, this is from the Wall Street Journal, then obviously there are some problems with what's going on in the context of the White House, and it really doesn't seem like these guys have a plan. Again, I'm still bullish. I think there's a way they'll figure it out. I think there's going to get a ton of deals done, and hopefully those deals are going to be productive. But that 90-day pause didn't seem like it was, like it came 4 days after they announced the freaking the April 2nd reciprocal tariffs. It didn't seem like it was some master plan, because why would you have a master plan unveil 4 days to reverse everything that you just introduced, that you made a big deal out of for the past 2 months? So it does feel like it was spur of the moment. It ended up working because the bond markets and the equity markets, that's when the S&P rallied 10% intraday. But obviously the markets need a lot more than that to be able to get excited in terms of how this is playing out. And on top of that, again, you've got Trump that wants to fire J-Pow. So you've got two kind of corresponding storylines right now. Trump wants to get rid of J-Pow, and based on some of the other articles I read this weekend, he still thinks he can get rid of J-Pow, even though Bessent has calmed him down from getting rid of J-Pow, because in Bessent's opinion, which I think is the right opinion, that would immediately shock equity markets if a president gets rid of an apolitical head of an institution, who he appointed in 2017, by the way. Trump nominated J-Pow. Like, at that point, you start to think of America as a dictatorship, and that's not how money starts coming back to the country, foreign money in particular, if we have a dictatorship that gets to pick and choose who gets to be in charge of monetary policy. Like, having those things be independent is actually very important, no matter how much we disagree with J-Pow's decision to not cut rates. And then you've got this narrative around Navarro being like a hawk on tariffs, and Lutnick and Bessent literally needing an opportunity for Navarro to be gone just to be able to convince him that it's important to end up doing the pause. So, I mean, you've got a lot of moving parts in terms of how it's playing out. And then you got Trump over the weekend. This is what he tweeted a couple hours ago, that essentially you can see on the screen, he's still sticking with the tariffs, and he's doubling down on the tariffs. He says right here, since our announcement of Liberation Day, many world leaders and business executives have come to me asking for relief from tariffs. It's good to see that the world knows we are serious, because we are. They must right the wrongs of decades of abuse, but it won't be easy for them. We must rebuild the wealth of our great country and create true reciprocity. But for those who want the easiest path, come to America and come build in America. Again, I just think this whole idea of we must rebuild the wealth of our great country. We've built up the wealth of our country without having tariffs for the past 30 years, and we've become wealthier than ever because we've gotten, as we talked about last week, a ton of benefits from having a trade deficit with the rest of the world. Do we need to have a trade deficit everywhere? No. Do we need China to import more stuff from us? Sure. But the idea that everything needs to be sourced in the United States is probably just unfathomable and not realistic. So again, Trump seems to be on Easter doubling down on this ideological narrative he has around the concept of tariffs being the way we get the most reciprocal wealth creation across the world. I don't know if that's going to be true, but if anything, it looks like he's been talking to Navarro today, and he's been putting out more stuff in the context of tariffs. Now, what did Goolsbie, who is a Fed chair, who has a vote in terms of how this all plays out, what did he say? Well, here's what he said today on Face the Nation.
So I wonder if you're hearing the same from your contacts in Chicago, that people are trying to, rush out there to buy, and how does that impact your outlook for the economy?
Yeah, that kind of preemptive purchasing is probably even more pronounced on the business side, where in anticipation, a lot of the imports that the tariffs would apply to, especially in the auto sector, are things that are parts, components, supplies that go into the manufacturing of other products. So we heard a lot about preemptive building up of inventories that could last 60 days, 90 days, if there were going to be more uncertainty. That raises the possibility that Gary Cohn raised there, that activity might look artificially high in the initial, and then by the summer might fall off because people had bought it all and brought it forward. I'm still hopeful, and the people that I talk to out in the Midwest are still hopeful that on the back end of this, it would be more like what Secretary Bessent said, that this could be a spark to lead to a new, he called it, golden age of global trade. If we can get through this, it's important to remember the hard data coming into April was pretty good. The unemployment rate around steady, full employment, inflation coming down. It's just a desire of people expressing they don't want to go back to kind of 21 and 22 at a time when inflation was really raging out of control.
So Goolsbie is basically saying, hey, we already have an incredible country. We've achieved incredible wealth. We did it without the tariffs. And this is shaking up the economic world order, for better or for worse. And it is the Fed's opinion. Again, whether you agree with the Fed or disagree with the Fed is irrelevant here. It is the Fed's opinion that this is going to create more inflation. And either the Fed's going to be right, the Fed might be wrong. I mean, we really don't know. We're going to have to see how this plays out. But if they are right that this creates a lot more inflation, then they're not going to cut, or they're not meaningfully going to cut, at least not in May. I personally think if Trump were to get rid of J-Powell, stock market would be down 5% that day. Like, I just don't think a sitting president can get rid of a sitting Fed chair before their term, unless the Fed chair has done something bad. And just because you disagree with their monetary policy does not mean you can get rid of them. It's just like, you just can't do that. Like that, the precedent for that is literally unprecedented. And if Trump were to do that, I think markets would lose a lot of confidence in terms of the current atmosphere that we're at. Netflix, by the way, up about 4% overnight. So Netflix maintaining a little bit of a pump. Google continues to go down. Apple's down. Robinhood's down. Everything's relatively flat, though. Nothing crazy. Tesla as well was down 2%. Now it's down about 1.3%. So I think he may try to fire Mr. J-Powell. I don't think it would be the smartest decision. I think he's going to have a ton of his advisors really warn him. I mean, for goodness sakes, dude, Kevin Warsh, the guy he wants to replace him with, is the one who the Wall Street Journal reported told him at Mar-a-Lago, don't fire J-Powell. Like, I want to be the new Fed chair, but I'll wait till May 2026. Don't fire J-Powell, because if you fire J-Powell to do it, it's just gonna look corrupt, dude. It's like, I'm firing this guy in the middle of his term to handpick this other guy, and then this guy cuts rates. It's like, okay, so you're literally just putting in someone that you want to be inside of that position, which again might be the right decision in the context of interest rates, but it's not the right decision in the context of the perception of how people think of it. So you could hate J-Powell all you want and hate the Fed. I think that move would be a pretty radical move, and we've already had the markets been shocked through different forms of volatility. This would be another form of volatility that would get pretty aggressive. Does the president have authority to fire him? Yes. Like, let's say J-Powell was in a massive scandal. Let's say J-Powell siphoned funds from the treasuries and he was caught like stealing money from the Fed or something. Like, yes, then you could fire him, right? There is a precedent to fire a sitting official of a federal agency, but the circumstances have to be dramatic, right? He has to like legitimately be doing something that's creating criminal negligence, whatever it may be. But it has to be something that's like bad. And J-Pow hasn't done anything. J-Pow just, J-Pow references Ferris Bueller's Day Off in his speeches. Like he's not a criminal. So it's one of those things where I don't think Trump has enough precedent outside of Trump just not liking him, which is not a precedent. Here's what Dan Ives said today. After a brutal and roller coaster few weeks since Trump unleashed the reciprocal tariffs at the Rose Garden, the markets and the tech world needs to find a path forward quickly and know what the rules of the games are looking like. The White House needs trade deals done quick with a negotiation path established with China. Otherwise, the markets, 10-year yield, USD gold, and the economy will head down on their own divergent paths over the coming weeks and months. We view this as a key week ahead to get some trade deals on the board, as the street does not care anymore about words and deal progress comments. Investors care about one thing: deals starting to get inked, which I think he's spot on about. The economic damage done from this Trump back and forth tariffs has likely pushed the economy towards a recession path already, as CapEx has halted across the board, hiring plans paused, price increase worries, and supply chain shock chaos has sparked a new level of uncertainty in the U.S. not seen since COVID days. But this time it's self-inflicted, with still much confusion ahead. We are heading into a tech earnings season that we expect minimal to no guidance, as C-level executives are playing darts blindfolded with gauging the growth and spending plans of their customers. Nvidia is one of the most important pieces in this chess game with China, and restricting its H20 chips is an important move that will clearly spark more actions from Beijing, but ultimately the street is laser focused on which side blinks first, the US or China. Nvidia news is the start of a volatile period ahead, but our long-term bullishness on the tech trade is unwavering, as we are focused on the long-term demand and technology future around AI within this next 3 to 6 months painful trade war between the US and China. Which is what I essentially agree with in terms of what Dan Ives is saying. He goes on to say that NVIDIA is still bullish for us, but we need to get more clarity around the Chinese export controls. AMD also got some export controls last week. NVIDIA falling $250 billion last week based on the banning of the H20 chip. I agree that it's now about deals, baby. We need to get deals done, and we need to get them done soon. This is what a Fox News correspondent said today. They said, here's my scoop. A Wall Street executive with ties to Trump White House says the word is that Scott Bessent is close to announcing a significant trade deal, likely to be with Japan. Now, I've gotten this independently confirmed with the White House. It's Easter and just recovering from the trade drama, but I must stress the situation is always fluid. What looks like a deal can unwind, and timing is always suspect. That said, the word coming from the White House is that they're approaching a significant deal. Again, not confirmed with the White House, but that is the source that Fox News is referencing currently right now. So yeah, we need some deals. And if we don't get some deals, things are going to get a little bit more ugly than what they were last week. Last week was green until Thursday when the NVIDIA stuff came out, or Wednesday night. And then everything kind of started tanking. And then on Thursday, we ended up just going red for the day. Yeah, I think I would be in the same position. I think that now the street's getting fed up with this whole, hey, we're going to have deals stuff lined up. Trump did say in a call on Thursday with the media that China has already called him multiple times. We don't know if he's lying or not about that. I mean, maybe he is. Maybe he's saying it as a negotiation tactic. Maybe China actually has reached out. But the street's interpretation is, okay, we don't think you're going to get a deal with China anytime soon because you seem to be like getting into some really serious beef with them. But can we get South Korea? Can we get Japan? Can we get Thailand? Can we get Vietnam? The problem is a lot of those countries are also speaking to China right now. And so I think there's a lot of nuance to getting a deal done. My gut feeling is that we're not going to get a ton of deals done this week. I do think the Japan deal is more likely than not because Japan is like one of our best trading partners, and it's hopefully easier than not to get a deal done with them. But then that begs the question, what's the subjects of the deal? Like, well, what are we actually getting from them? What trade concessions are we getting that are going to be so substantial that it will meaningfully lead to the street being like, wow, everything we went through to get this deal with Japan is so important that it was worth all the pain that we dealt with. And I just don't know what the street wants to see in order to get those types of deals. Like, do they want 0% tariffs? Like what exactly? By the way, Ford is not shipping to China anymore. So that we got that headline a couple days ago. Ford has decided they are officially not shipping. They only sell about 5,500 units to China a year, so it's not like some dramatic decline in their business. But they said with the 145% tariffs, it just doesn't make sense anymore to ship to China. So Ford is officially not doing that. We also did get another Japan headline over the weekend that was bullish. And I believe it had to do with more manufacturing coming back to the United States, but or less tariff imports on certain vehicles coming from Japan, I believe it was the headline. So you would think that we're going to get probably a deal, closer than not. The question is just how close is close, and if we get it anytime soon. Again, that Wall Street Journal headline, that was the big one that we got on Saturday, or this was on Friday, actually, when the market was closed, that Bessent and Lutnick quietly persuaded Trump to pause tariffs on April 9th, while trade advisor Navarro was occupied elsewhere in the White House. Is 7,000 S&P still on the table? I would be heavily skeptical of that. I mean, I think, look, if it's on the table, it's on the table if China comes to the table. And China has to meaningfully come to the table, and we have to negotiate like within the next month for us to even have the room to run that high. But I think being realistic, we would be lucky if we, get 62, 6,300 in as like super bull case. 7,000 just feels a bit unpredictable right now. Why did Elon follow Bessent? Okay, so let's move on to that story. So what happened with Elon and Bessent? Well, apparently this has to do with the IRS. So, let's kind of, there's a couple pieces to this story right here. So this is the first part. The New York Times reported that the acting commissioner of the IRS is being replaced after Bessent complained to Trump that the latest leader of the agency had been installed without his knowledge and at the behest of Elon Musk. So the head of IRS, this was on Friday, was being ousted. And the reason for it apparently came from Bessent saying, hey, this should not be the person leading the IRS. And this is like an Elon, this is someone that Elon really wanted. And we need to replace him. Apparently, Trump listened to Bessent, and as a result, Elon unfollowed Bessent on Friday. Now, Elon reposted this post, and this post was exclusive. White House vetting crisis continues as Trump appointed U.S. Treasury Secretary invites pro-impeachment Trump hater to collaborate with him at the Treasury Department. Scott Bessent invites a pro-impeachment and pro-censorship Trump hater to collaborate with him. So apparently there's this guy who Bessent is really good friends with. His name is John Hope Bryant. And this guy was vehemently against Trump, and he was not a fan of Trump's first term. He was basically one of those never Trumpers, right? He didn't like Trump. And apparently he's meeting with Bessent in some meeting, and Elon's sharing content around people saying that this guy is super anti-Trump. So why is Bessent, who is one of Trump's biggest advisors, meeting with the guy? And the reason people are saying that, or the reason people are thinking that Elon's posting that, is because Elon is upset that Bessent convinced Trump, as we just talked about, to get rid of the acting IRS director that Elon had wanted in the first place. I'm also really confused about this because why is Elon, what exactly does Elon care about the IRS? Like what exactly is going on where Elon wants like a specific IRS director? What is so special about the IRS director that Elon wanted? I haven't figured that part of the story yet. That like there's some person running the IRS that is so important to Elon Musk that he was upset that Bessent got rid of him, and now he's trying to essentially delegitimize Bessent by sharing these ideas that Bessent's meeting with people that hate Trump, and Bessent technically is a guy that doesn't like Trump. It's really weird. It's really weird. Again, this came out April 18th. The head of the IRS is being ousted after a power struggle between the Treasury Secretary and Elon Musk. People briefed on the exchange said Trump ended up going with the Treasury Secretary. Maybe it's something with Doge. Yeah, maybe. I mean, but it just like, what does Elon need that is so special at the IRS that he wants some specific head? Or does he think Bessent is like being corrupt and trying to install some different IRS for his own personal reasons, and he's trying to warn Trump that Bessent's going to stab him in the back or something? Like how is, I don't know, how's this playing out? Or what exactly is the route here, the narrative that Elon's trying to promote? And what does that mean for his relationship with Trump? It's weird, dude. It's weird. It's one of those things that's, again, this was developing on Friday and no one fully understands it. But as soon as I saw this, I I felt there was something going on. And I think all of us have thought there was something going on over the past couple of weeks. But we thought it was going on with Elon and freaking Navarro, not Elon and Bessent. So Elon unfollowing Bessent. I don't know, dude. It's just the story gets juicier and juicier and juicier every single day. And it's literally like it's like theater right now in the White House. By the way, futures recovering a little bit. VIX is down, S&P recovering, NASDAQ recovering. They're still red right now, but it looks like they could go green if we have any little bit of good news or anything, but relatively flat for the day. Nothing too crazy. You're saying Elon wants to save a lot of money on taxes. Yeah, but I feel like Elon, unless there's some special code or some special law that he thought the certain IRS director that he wanted to put in place was going to pass. I mean, Elon has a lot of ways to save on taxes. And he's not, first of all, the IRS director is not in charge of the tax rate. That's Congress, right? Like the Congress ultimately and the president and the Tax and Jobs Act is going to decide how many percentage points go up or down on corporate income tax, billionaires, etc. So Elon is not in charge of that. Neither is the IRS director. There has to be something else that's more specific about this IRS director that Elon cares about so much. And I don't know if it's as simple as saving on taxes. By the way, look at Bitcoin, bro, up almost 2%. Holy crap. Look at that green candle, 86.2. Bitcoin continuing to decouple from reality. And reality is S&P and NASDAQ go red, Bitcoin goes green. I mean, so far, dude, you got to admit, it's been pretty incredible to see Bitcoin be the opposite of what a lot of people said right now. Amid, can't Jerome Powell keeping interest rates high be deemed bad for American people? I mean, having rates so high is hard on everyday Americans. Yes, it is. The problem is the Fed or the president can't just remove Jay Powell because of that, right? Like, yes, having rates that are high is really bad for the American people. I mean, this is exactly what Elizabeth Warren said, right? Elizabeth Warren, when she wrote her letter to Jerome Powell on September 16, 2024, her entire argument was, hey, Jay Powell, you're going to be responsible for millions of people losing their jobs if you continue to keep rates high. That doesn't mean you can get rid of the Fed chair. And again, you got to remember why the Fed chair is keeping rates so high. He is afraid that Trump is going to have such bad inflationary policies with the tariffs, which are not just one-time inflation, which are not just one-time tariffs on China like they were back in 2018. This is across the board. The average inflation rate the average tariff rate went from 4% in the United States to 22%. That is a quadrupling or a quintupling of the average tariff rate across the board. The Fed thinks that's going to create some inflation. And so it's really, you know what Trump should have done? I realized this over the weekend. You know what Trump should have done? And again, I'm not the president. I'm not an expert on navigating policy and politics, but I think Trump should have waited until year 2 for the tariffs. Like, tell me how that doesn't make sense. Trump gets into office. He goes pro-growth, cut taxes, get your budget across, focus on some other agenda item like immigration, whatever else it may be. Get Jay Powell to cut the rates because Jay Powell's not afraid of the tariff inflation. And then in 2026, you focus on the tariffs. Like, why did he focus on the tariffs as soon as he went into office? I mean, I think this was just a massive miscalculation by the Trump administration because they should have been smart enough. By the way, Bitcoin going in front of us in pretty dramatic fashion right here, 86.6. They should have been smart enough to realize, hey, wait a second. If we put on tariffs, the Fed's going to be afraid of inflation. They're not going to cut rates. If we didn't have tariffs, I think the Fed would be cutting next month. Why? Because CPI and PPI are at 2.5-year lows. Like, we don't need to have double the federal funds rate when CPI and PPI is almost at 2%. It's at 2.4 right now. And then in 2026, they could have done this whole tariff nonsense. Like I have no, because the midterm, well, they could have waited until January 2026, right? They didn't have to wait literally because they would have lost in the midterms. That's fair. However, I think the difference here is because rates would have come down so dramatically, stock market would have been up. The economy in general would have done better. Inflation, they could have got eggs and groceries and all that stuff to come down without the fear of tariffs and all that stuff. Import prices would be way down because we had so many import prices in Q1 because of the Q4 because of the fear that tariffs would be inflationary. So people started stockpiling earlier. Like, if he had just done none of that, and said, hey, I'm going to focus on tariffs later, his first 100 days would have gotten a ton of stuff passed in his agenda. By the way, he doesn't need congressional approval to do tariffs, so it's all through executive orders, apparently. So it's not like he needed to do this in his first 100 days when his political capital was the highest, because I can make an argument that tariffs are fundamentally decreasing all of his political capital because they're not working, or at least the perception of them is that they're not working right now. I don't know. I feel like there's a world in which, or he could have at least waited until we get a couple more cuts. Like he could have done this in like September 2025 instead of January 2025, and we would have had the federal funds rate closer to 3% versus 4.5%, and then he could have done this whole thing. But I feel like doing this right here shot himself in the foot, because the Fed doesn't want to cut. Now you've got tariffs that are inflationary. The stock market crashed because of the tariffs. Like where was the benefit here? I just don't see how moving this quickly on it was a benefit. China could be too strong, but I really doubt China would. Dude, like China is China right now. Their economy is not booming. They are printing tons of money and trying to stimulate the economy. I really doubt in 365 days, China would have been so powerful that the 145% tariffs we're levying against them wouldn't have been effective January 2026. But for some reason, it's more effective January 2025. Like, I don't know. I don't know what the urgency of it was. And the reason I'm saying this again is because he needs lower rates to be able to get this stuff done. And he's not getting lower rates if he keeps this tariff overhang over the Fed. So it's like either the Fed's going to blink, or either he's going to replace the Fed chair, which I think is going to crash the markets, or he's just not going to get rate cuts. But either or, that's not going to be a good thing for any of these people. I thought we have $9 trillion that is coming due. Exactly. Which is why he should have let the Fed cut rates, not worried about tariffs, get a lower 10-year to then be able to finance the $9 trillion that we have coming up, and then pursue all the tariffs. Like now, if we don't get any rate cuts and these tariffs keep creating all this volatility and the 10-year doesn't come down because like no one's excited to buy bonds in the midst of all this volatility, we're going to have to refinance our debt at 4.5%. Like, how is that a win for us? Whereas we could have been refinancing it at closer to 3% if we actually got about 100 basis points of cuts, which I think we are really close to getting, given inflation is falling off a cliff in every metric we look at, except the big boogeyman that is in the room, which are tariffs that are forcing the Fed to be hawkish when it comes to inflation. Why is Bitcoin pumping? I have no idea, but it is pumping. I don't know why, but Bitcoin is being Bitcoin. So I don't know. This was just a thought I had the other day. I mean, I feel like it was a miscalculation by the Trump team, but I don't know exactly why they had to focus in the first 100 days on tariffs when they could have still had it part of the agenda, but gotten a lot of things done before this. It's not like we were getting ripped off so badly that we didn't have to wait another year to institute the tariffs. But this is the route they went, and now it's just a question of trade deals, because trade deals are going to be the only thing that I think calms down the market right now. S&P 500 recovering a decent chunk. It was down 0.5%. Now it's down 0.2%. Bitcoin looking like it wants to get to 87, bro. Holy crap. That's a $1,600 candle on Bitcoin right now. Not bad, dude. Not bad at all. Where's gold? Is gold pumping as well? Gold. Yeah, I think gold's getting some love right here. Yeah, gold's up almost 1.2% as well. Look at that. 309 on gold. This is just regular GLD, the BlackRock Gold ETF. Huh. Gold and Bitcoin pumping. Everything else basically flat. Dude, if Bitcoin gets back to 100K independent of all this shit going on, that would be a hell of a story. First of all, that'd be super bullish for MicroStrategy, Robinhood, and Coinbase. So it's good for all the crypto stocks that have exposure to it, but definitely good for people that are over leveraged Bitcoin. Okay, cool. So yeah, so those were the main stories in the context of the Wall Street Journal. Speaking of gold, we do have this confirmation right here. China's central bank increased their gold holdings by 5 tons in March, posting their 5th consecutive monthly increase. This brings the total China gold reserves to a record 2,292 tons. It now reflects 6.5% of their total reserve assets. According to Goldman Sachs, China actually purchased a whopping 50 tons of gold in February, or 10 times more than they officially reported. Over the past 3 years, China's purchases of gold on the London OTC market have significantly surpassed officially reported gold numbers. And it seems like China is one of the main ones that is accumulating gold at a rapid pace. The idea that they're selling off our treasuries seems to be a little less likely, given what's been going on in the bond market. But the idea that China is behind the massive run-up in gold seems very likely. By the way, the 10-year is selling off a little bit currently right now, 4.344. If that one gets closer to 4.5, that's not going to be the best thing. But you do have the 30-year and the 10-year slightly ticking up as gold starts to serve as a safe holding. Cool. So that's what we got in the context of China and gold. What kind of tweets are we going to get this week? I have no idea, bro. I think it's going to be a pretty volatile week, though. I think if they don't get any deals, market's going to be upset, and Trump's going to try to calm them down. Trump's going to try to double down on the tariffs, and that's probably going to result in some more wild tweets. Palantir right here at 95.10. That's currently up a little bit overnight as well, up about 1.4%. Speaking of Palantir, all right, let's talk about some of the Palantir beef that I got into over the weekend. So, there's a guy that you guys might know or may not know. His name is Paul Graham, and I really look up to the guy. He is someone who I think is a legend in Silicon Valley. I mean, not I think. He is like one of the, I would say, top 10 legends of Silicon Valley. He created Y Combinator. For those that don't know Y Combinator, it's a massive Silicon Valley startup. Not a startup. It's a what do you call it? An incubator for startups. And the only reason we have Reddit and Airbnb and all these companies is because of Y Combinator. They were the only ones giving out $100,000 checks back in 2005, 2010 to get these companies, to get these people, these young kids that had all these dreams back in Silicon Valley in the early days of the tech revolution to have some money to go build out their ideas. So he's been someone I've looked up to for a long time. And then I saw him say this. It's a very exciting time in tech right now. If you're a first-rate programmer, there are a huge number of other places you can go work rather than a company building the infrastructure of the police state. And he's referencing Palantir as the police state because they got a contract with ICE, which is the Immigration Customs Enforcement agency, for about $30 million. If anyone wants to see my take on Palantir working with ICE, I did a video on this a long time ago, and my views haven't really changed on this. So I'm going to link that right here in the chat. This was 3 years ago. I made this video long time ago. If you just type in Palantir emit ICE, you'll see this video. And so we don't have to go deep into that today, but TLDR, Palantir is working to protect borders. And they're going to do that regardless of whatever administration. They helped Obama when it came to immigration. They helped Trump, and now they're helping Trump 2.0 again. So he took a big shot, and I felt bad because this is a guy who has 2 million followers, lots of influence, and he basically just said, hey, Palantir is a piece of shit. You should go work anywhere else. And so I gave my response. And as you can see, based on the feedback of the response, a lot of people tended to resonate with it. Ted Mabry also responded to this guy. Ted Mabry is the commercial head of global head of commercial at Palantir, and he nuked this guy. I mean, when I mean nuked, I mean his post has millions and millions of views, and he put out a very long post on why this guy is off his bonkers right here. But here's what I said. I said, I learned a ton from you when I was younger. Your lectures on startups are incredible. However, as someone who has spent the last 5 days or the last 5 years studying Palantir literally every day, your take on this is so absurd that it leads me to believe your ideology might be the only thing leading to this type of content. You realize that the entire NHS runs on Palantir. That same police state entity was chosen by UK's most beloved institution to manage, aggregate, and make sense of the most valuable health data in the country. Why? Because of outcomes, reducing backlogs, wait times, things that matter. If you are referring to Palantir's work with ICE, aka them making sure violent, illegal immigrants are not literally killing and destroying the fabric of society, then if you want to call that a police state, you can quite frankly call it whatever the hell you want. It's saving lives. It is beyond privileged. This guy, by the way, lives in a literal castle in the UK. For someone who lives in an ivory tower to be lecturing the world on immigration and what should be done to protect civil liberties. If you had studied Palantir for maybe 2 seconds, you'd know that protecting civil liberties is the core premise of the technology. The entire concept came from the idea of preventing another 9/11 while at the same time not violating civil liberties, something that seemed impossible until Palantir brought their technology, sued the US government to procure their software in a meritocratic way, and began saving lives. They've hosted 6 conferences in the past 2 years with hundreds of customers showing off what they've been able to do to transform their enterprises. I mean, for goodness sakes, their software was the backbone of vaccine distributions in 2020. I have so much respect for you, but you are so ignorant on this topic, and given your influence, it's very sad to see you propagate this type of content, not even because you have a different perspective, but because your perspective is rooted in complete and utter ignorance. And then he says, in that case, they should have no problem publicly promising not to build things to help the government violate the Constitution, right? Unless you want to think obeying the Constitution is ideology. I think this guy has lost his mind right here. Because his argument is, I need one sentence from Palantir proving they're not going to help violate the Constitution. Number one, and again, Ted Mabry's response is phenomenal on this. Like, what does it mean to violate the Constitution? Number two, why should a corporate entity be pledging their allegiance to the Constitution? Like, that's not some dystopian 1984 world where every corporation has to be held to the standard of the Constitution. Number three, I said they've published 20 articles in the past 10 years explaining their relationship and dedication to protecting civil liberties and constitutional rights while upholding Western values. It really took a simple search. If you click on this website right here, you get to Palantir's blog, where they've published literally over 20 articles over the past decade speaking about how they think about privacy, civil liberties, how they protect data, how they don't violate data. The NHS is really, really stringent about their data. There's a reason the NHS picked Palantir and gave them a big contract a couple years ago. It's because they're not stealing and violating and manipulating your data. That was the mainstream narrative that got propagated by a lot of different media entities that have certain agendas, let's just say, to constitute that narrative. And it seems like this guy has fell into that trap. And then he says, can you please quote the passage where they publicly commit to not building things that help the government violate the US Constitution? And I was like, all right, at that point, this is just stupid. So I responded to him after that. I was like, dude, you got to look at yourself in the mirror. Like, I just responded to you with hundreds of pages of literature and you want this one sentence. It's almost like that child that's like, I'm not going to believe you until you prove this one sentence. It's like, it's childish. And this guy's way too smart for that. This guy's this guy is a Silicon Valley legend. And he is publicly telling everyone to not be affiliated with Palantir because of one sentence that apparently justifies whether Palantir is a good company or not a good company. Maybe he's short. I mean, maybe. I doubt it's even short. I think the guy is very ideological. From my understanding, he started entering into the side of the tech world. You know, Alex Karp talks about those Silicon Valley bureaucrats that are able to dictate what they think is right for the world and then impose those values versus actually looking at the reality of what's going on in the world. He seems to be one of those guys. He seems to be someone who's gotten super rich and now is trapped in his ideology. And that ideology apparently this weekend took a shot at Palantir. But, you know, this is not 2017 anymore. You can't just take shots at Palantir and act like the mainstream narrative and the media is going to carry you out. Ted Mabry, I'm not going to read his entire post, but I'll put it in the chat for those that want to read it. I mean, he got 2.2 million views on his post against what Paul said. And he just demolished even the question that Paul was asking in the first place. So I think we're in a new world where Palantir just has a massive legion of supporters. And if you're going to take shots at the company, especially for these stupid brain dead narratives of they're an evil spy company that's going to ruin the world and violate civil liberties without actually researching what the company does. Palantir right here, 1.4% in the overnight markets. Then I don't think you're going to be able to get away with those narratives anymore. I didn't think my response would get that much attention. I was at the gym. On Friday. I saw this. I was just like, you know what? I'll write a little response. So I took a break from my workout for 10 minutes. I wrote up the response. I sent it. And then an hour later, I'm like, holy crap. Like a lot of people are resonating with this. And I got a lot of private messages from people that are in Silicon Valley. And they were just like, thank you. Thank you for calling him out on his bullshit. Because a lot of people, if you're in Silicon Valley, you can't really break your ties with Paul G. He's one of those guys where it's like, you don't want to have bad relationships with the guy because he has a lot of power, a lot of influence. I don't fucking know the guy. I quite frankly don't care about his power. I just wanted there to be a counter narrative underneath his post because his post was going viral. And I'm like, this is full of shit. Like everything he's saying is actually full of dog shit. It's just wrong. And he didn't even care about doing the research to like correct himself. He just wanted to be right, which is, you could tell how arrogant his responses were. I'm like, all right, well, let's have a counter narrative here. And I think people appreciated just having a counter narrative. Look at Bitcoin go, bro. Almost 87,000, 86.9. It's up 1,700 points. I don't know what's moving Bitcoin, but it seems like something is Something's moving Bitcoin right here. Yeah, look at this thing, dude. 86.9, huh? Not bad. I was not bench pressing. I was not bad. I was doing one of those tricep machines. So I was in between the set, and then I saw the post, and I'm like, you know what, dude, this is ridiculous. This is just stupid. Because I also know a lot of Palantir employees can't respond to that either, you know, because Ted is like more high up in the Palantir world, so he's like able to get away with responding. But I could just tell like a lot of employees probably wanted to respond, but they couldn't. The dude was basically saying Palantir is a police state, and if you work at their company, you're full of shit. And I'm just like, okay, there needs to be some way to counteract this narrative. And so I used the research that I know about Palantir, the amount of literature I've studied over the past 5 years, and I just said, no, this like the whole point of the company was in response to 9/11. How do you build a company that doesn't violate civil liberties, but also stops another 9/11 from happening? Which is why it's so funny when people call Palantir a police state. It's like, it's actually the opposite. It's like, now Palantir hasn't done the best job communicating that. So I'll you know, from that perspective, Palantir definitely over the past 20 years, they needed to do a way better. And the whole secretive nature of them led to them not really knowing that the rest of the world thought they were a police state. But we got to shift the narrative now, because that's just not the right narrative. 87,000 got rejected at 87.21, now down about 150 points, 86.8. But you do have a pretty nice set of momentum candles going right here on Bitcoin. But yeah, that's what we did over the weekend in the context of debating with Paul G. I woke up on Saturday. I was like, did I really just go toe to toe with Paul G? I was like, I can't believe we went back and forth. And you could tell the fact that he even responded to me, you could tell that like even he knew that his shit was just wrong. Like, and like he's just like, you could tell like so many people are coming after him because it was just like, it was just idiotic. You can't be posting this stuff anymore, dude. He has way too much influence to try to say Palantir is some evil company when it's like, it's not. It's just like, that's just not the truth anymore. If it's not Palantir, another software company is going to build immigration OS. Our current leaders are authoritarian. That's the real problem. Well, yeah, I mean, look, the thing is, you know, when it comes to immigration and deportations, again, the Obama administration deported way more people than Trump 1.0 or than the Biden administration. Like the Obama administration set a record on deportations. But people don't want to talk about that because it's Obama. He's a Democrat and he's awesome and he's lovable and blah, blah, blah. But when it comes to Trump, it becomes this whole egregious thing about like, why are you deporting all these people? So from that perspective, Palantir was helping Obama with deportations in 2012 as well. So when the Vice media headlines in 2017 came out around Trump's immigration policies and Palantir being the backbone infrastructure for it, to Palantir, they were like, yeah, but we were helping Obama too. So like, why are you guys blaming us for helping Trump if we were helping Obama? Like illegal immigration is an issue and any administration, Democratic or Republican, needs help to be able to navigate it. And so whether it's Trump 2.0, Biden 1.0, Obama, like Palantir has always been there. I just think the narrative on it mixed with whatever ideological narrative that the media hates around Trump, you put those two together and then you create some police state nonsense. And in reality, that's just not the case. And if it is the case, then it's been a police state forever at that point, right? Like, it's like, you know, like, it's just like, you can't win with that argument. But I also do agree that there is going to be some company that manages immigration operating system softwares. If it's not Palantir, I would just rather it be Palantir because every other company that tries to do it probably is not going to do it as well as Palantir. And they're probably not going to keep civil liberties at the core of the technology in terms of how they implement it. Whereas Palantir has a 20-year head start in terms of knowing how to do it. This right here that I'm showing on the screen is really important. So we got leveraged ETF inflows. Investors last week plowed $6.6 billion into long ETFs, which profit when the underlying holding rises. So this is not something you see at, I guess, a recessionary market, right? You don't see $6.6 billion go into things like NVDL and TSLL, but apparently that's happening. I don't know if this is scary because this is too much leverage going into the system and that's bad, or if this is one of those things where it's like, this is getting ready for a blow off top and then you get into a bear market, or this is like proving that investors continue to want to buy the dip. But the fact that people are still trading the super levered ETFs, BITX, NVDL, etc., maybe that goes to show people are ready to buy the dip and they're still bullish regardless. Bitcoin just under 87, 86.7. We hit 87 for a second, and then we got hit right back under those level. All those people are waiting for the next Trump tweet to the upside. Yeah, that's facts. That's probably true. If you're in levered ETFs right now, if you're selling puts on levered ETFs or something, you are definitely waiting for a Trump tweet to give you some momentum. Lords, thank you for the $10 super chat. Palantir earnings 5.5, expecting great numbers. I am as well. I don't know May 5th, 15 days from now, what the market looks like in terms of the macro. But I think Palantir is going to crush it, dude. I think they're really going to crush it. I mean, they've been getting government contracts like crazy. They've been expanding in the UK. Their scope of work with the UK, if you watch that interview I did over the weekend with the executive VP of the UK, has started to grow even more. I think it's going to be a good earnings. I think it's going to be a really good earnings. I just am curious if the street will let Palantir get back over 100 in the current tariff volatility that we're dealing with right now. TSLL, Robin, yeah, ROBN, there's a lot of these leverage ones. ROBN, TSLL, retail is going to get burned. I definitely would not be trusting the leverage ETFs right now. I think you really need a catalyst for these things to move, especially TSLL. Let's talk about Tesla. So let me do a poll right here. I mean, what are we thinking for Tesla, folks? This thing is, I feel like, pretty scary going into earnings, but everyone is so scared of it that maybe it's not as scary. So Tesla pump or dump on earnings. Tesla's right now at 240. If anyone wants to put their exact price they think Tesla will end up at after hours on Tuesday, feel free to do that as well. I feel like it's going to dump. I just don't know if it's going to dump as dramatically as what people think. I also think Elon is going to wax poetic on that call, and he was retweeting stuff about Optimus this weekend. I think he's going to promise that Optimus will be bigger than the next biggest car companies combined, yada, yada. And I don't know, there might be a way for him to pump it. But if the numbers really are bad, then it's going to be bad. Wow, everyone's saying dump. Everyone's saying dump, my goodness. Everyone's saying dump. Yeah, gold record high. I agree. Derek, I think, said 125. Yeah, I mean, he's bullish Tesla, but he's also realistic about how ugly it can get. No one cares in these market conditions about Optimus and stuff. See, I agree with that. Like Elon saying fun stuff about Tesla, I 1,000% agree. No one cares when the macro is this uncertain. But I kind of also think that, I don't know, I just kind of also think that everyone's getting so big. I feel like what I'm trying to say is I think it can be like a delivery numbers type of result where deliveries were just god awful, but the stock only fell 5%. Like maybe it falls 10%, but for everyone calling it to fall like 30 or 40%. I don't know. I don't know if that has to happen. Dan Ives just tweeted about Elon. He said, "We believe Tesla along with nvidia are two of the most disruptive technology companies in the globe over the coming years, but Musk needs to leave the government, take a step back on Doge, and get back to being CEO of Tesla full-time in our view." Big earnings call for Musk on Tuesday. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if Elon leaves Doge, because has anyone noticed he's not tweeting about Doge that much? He's not that excited about it anymore. They were supposed to save $1 trillion. That goal is now 150 billion or something. Like it's not every single tweet is not about government corruption or government waste and fraud. It's kind of just like died down in terms of the amount that he spends tweeting on it. And a month ago, it was like every other day he was talking about Doge, and he was doing interviews with like Fox News every day about Doge. So, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he just says, you know what, I'm done with this. I did what I had to do. I have to go back to Tesla. But I also think he likes having the power that he has. And if he's in all these meetings with Bessent and Navarro and Lutnick, et cetera, then maybe he doesn't give that up as easily by leaving. I don't know. This is going to be an interesting one. I also think the Elon-Trump relationship is not as strong as it was a while ago. And that's mainly from Elon criticizing his highest advisors like Bessent and Navarro. Like, you can't tell me you're going to be super friendly or think super fondly of a guy who's talking shit on the two people that are advising you on the policies your administration is carrying out. Like, there's going to be some resentment regardless, because Elon is not being a good boy to Trump. He's being a rebel. When you shit on Navarro like he does, like, and Trump's relying on Navarro, like, Trump's obviously looking bad from those that support Elon. So I think Trump doesn't appreciate that. Trump's probably, I don't know if that's a deal breaker for Trump, because he obviously gets a lot of value from Elon, but I think he's not happy with seeing that. And it's one thing for Elon to be mad at Sam Altman and then Trump to announce this like Sam Altman Stargate $500 billion deal. It's another thing for him to legitimately shit on Navarro, Lutnick, and Bessent, because those are the three closest advisors to the administration when it comes to this tariff policy. And then his brother is criticizing Trump every day. Kimball, every other day, he's calling Trump an idiot based on the trade war that he's launching, most likely because Elon is co-signing a lot of the stuff he's posting. So it's weird where that relationship's going to go and how it ends up. Your take on Hood earnings? I think Hood's going to crush it. I don't know what's going to look like for Q2, but based on IBKR and Schwab earnings, Hood probably had a phenomenal Q1. But the story is going to be more so going into Q2 versus Q1. Their April metrics are going to have to be really decent for the street to overlook some of the weakness that they might see year over year. But I think Hood's going to be fine. And if it's not fine, then we get a great buying opportunity. I mean, if this thing falls back into the 20s, I wouldn't mind. I'd be like, all right, you get to load up more. If we get into a recession, then it gets really bad. But if we avoid recession, I think Hood at least is flat, if not slightly up after earnings. It's just in this macro, you have no idea. Trump could tweet something the day freaking Hood reports earnings and just like change the entire trajectory of how it's going to play out. But numbers wise, I think they're going to have more than 900 million, and it's going to be a good quarter for them. I mean, would you sell a 240 covered call on Tesla this week? You would have to be pretty damn sure that Tesla's going to tank below 240, which, I mean, everyone's pretty sure Tesla's going to go red. So yeah, I don't hate 240. I might go out a little bit more and do 260-ish just to give myself a little bit of safety in case it pumps. It's just, what's the narrative for Tesla to pump, right? Like, the numbers are going to suck unless he announces something really new that no one knows about when it comes to FSD or Optimus. I find it hard to think Tesla's going to pump. Maybe Tesla only goes down by 5 to 10%, which is not that crazy given what people are projecting. But if there's no narrative for it to pump, then yeah, 240, 260 may not be a horrible strike. And if it does, if it does pump above 240, I mean, you should be able to easily roll that call and get out of it, because unless it just keeps going up and up and up, and in this environment, it's hard to imagine any stock that just keeps getting momentum every day, unless we get a China deal. But we're not going to get a China deal by Tuesday, I would imagine. So yeah, I think covered calls are in a much better situation in this macro. Tesla buys TikTok. Yeah, I don't think they would do that. I don't own Reddit anymore. I sold Reddit at like 160. I wouldn't be buying Reddit. Dude, I wouldn't be buying any stocks before earnings, to be honest. I really would want to see earnings for all these names. Like I want to see Meta's earnings before I buy them. I want to see SoFi's earnings. I want to see Reddit's earnings. Like, I just don't think anyone has to be in a rush to get into these, unless you think they're so undervalued and the street has the earnings story so wrong, which Reddit's not super undervalued or anything like that. I just think more data is better in this context. And we know the volatility is not stopping anytime soon. So even if they do get a good earnings pump, the odds of them coming right back down after we get more pain when it comes to tariffs is more likely. Amit, are you in Google? Yes, I'm in Google. And Google has been getting wrecked all freaking year, dude. Now they have a UK lawsuit for $5 billion. And they have and then they were ruled an illegal monopoly on Wednesday by a U.S. court. I don't even know what implication that has on Google, but it doesn't seem positive. And now Meta is dealing with a ton of FTC stuff. So it is a mess across the board. And the only thing that I think changes the narrative for the entire market are deals. A lot more trade deals. Speaking of Tesla, we are going to have someone on the show tomorrow on the Market Open. We're going to have, let me get his exact name, John Freeman, who used to be the head of Tesla. He was the head of Tesla sales for like 8 years. Let me pull up his exact name right here. He's going to be on the show tomorrow. And we're going to be talking a little bit more Tesla at around like 10:45ish. Oh, John McNeil, not John Freeman, John McNeil. So he was a C-suite at Tesla from 2010 to 2018. And let me get his exact title. He was the president of global sales, marketing, government relations, and delivery and services. Actually, sorry, 2015 to 2018. So he was there for 3 years, and then he was the COO of Lyft for a year. So he'll be on the show tomorrow, and yeah, we'll get his thoughts on what he's thinking of Tesla. But in general, I think the story is robotics and FSD. In the short term, this auto stuff doesn't seem like it's going to be pretty. Also, the California EV registrations we got on Wednesday were disgusting, dude. It was down 12% year over year, which is bad because it's California. Like, that's where your registration should not be going down. People keep blaming it on the Model Y refresh. Oh, how did I forget to mention, dude? I mean, this hasn't been proved to be false yet, from my understanding, but Reuters is saying that the affordable, quote unquote, Model 2 that Tesla was supposed to unveil in the second half of 2025, that's being delayed. Now, again, Elon, last time Reuters put out an article like this, Elon, within like an hour on Twitter, I remember it was April 2024, literally around this time last year, he said it's fake news. He has not said that yet. So if this is the case with Reuters, then yeah, I mean, if it's the case, I'm taking credit because my prediction at the beginning of the year was I don't actually think they're coming out with an affordable Model 2. Said that in the beginning of the year. I was like, dude, I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's going to be really hard. And I was just saying from a logistics standpoint, how are they going to be able to get all of that done by the second half of this year? Now, again, Reuters could be wrong. They've been wrong in the past. But Elon usually corrects them when they're wrong. So far, Elon hasn't said anything. Maybe that's the surprise on earnings. What if Elon comes out and he's like, screw you guys. We're releasing it like next week, the affordable $30,000 car or whatever it is. Maybe that could get the street excited. That could catch everyone off guard if they release it earlier than usual. But if this is delayed, then that's not going to be good either. He may announce they are delayed and going full send on robotaxi. The street would tank it though. Yeah, dude, that lower cost Model Y, whatever it is, 30,000 Model 2, whatever you want to call it. That was a big part of the thesis last year when people were saying, all right, when Tesla comes out with that car, everything's going to change because you're going to have people being able to buy, instead of a Honda Civic or a Toyota Corolla, a lower cost EV. If they nuke that or if they delay that and go all in on robotaxi, I don't think that's the worst decision because robotaxi obviously seems to be the future. But I think in the short term, the street would tank it. And if the street does tank it on that, I would be a buyer because I do think robotaxi and bots are the future, not a lower cost Model Y. But in the short term, it would kill the numbers and it would kill the guidance for this year as well, which probably would not be the best thing. What about a share buyback? All right, so how many of you guys think Tesla should buy back their shares? I don't know if that's the smartest idea, primarily because Tesla is still in growth mode, right? Or it's supposed to be in growth mode. So they have $30 billion in cash. Buying back $10 billion of shares, I think or $20 billion in shares, whatever. Like buying back their stock right here, what does that really do for shareholders? It's not like Google or Amazon or Meta or Apple where they're not growing as much anymore, even though ironically they're all growing more than Tesla. And they need to strategically buy back their shares as a part of giving back shareholder value. I mean, a lot of them even have a dividend, right? But Tesla's supposed to be like triple-digit growth for the next decade, theoretically, with all the different verticals that they're in. That's supposed to be pushing the momentum forward. I think they need to be reinvesting that cash. I don't think any Tesla shareholder gets excited if Tesla buys back 10 million shares. And realistically, given how liquid Tesla stock is, like on any headline, it could go up or down 10 or 15%. So will the buybacks even really be that effective? Right? Usually the buy for Apple, which is not supposed to be super fluid in terms of the dynamics of going up or down, Apple can have a strategic price that they can confidently say, hey, we think buying back shares at these levels mean that we are getting a good deal, and they can keep things moving normally. But Tesla's so volatile that you could get, who knows, you can get below 200, and then maybe the buyback makes way more sense. Or you get to 350 because Tesla just invested all their money into more Optimus production, and that was a way better ROI than buying back their stock. Also, if they issue a buyback, is Tesla stock really undervalued right now? If the numbers aren't the best, like long-term, sure, probably 10 years, it's undervalued. But in the next 10 quarters, is it undervalued? Probably not. Which means the buyback also is not that effective there. Dividends would not be better than a buyback. Dividends or buybacks, anything that where they have to give money back to shareholders, I think is ineffective, when in reality, the reason you're buying Tesla stock is because you think that 241 will go much higher, aka the capital appreciation you get will be so much greater because the company is going to grow. I mean, remember, Elon said this company will be greater than the next 5 largest companies combined. So he's talking 10, 15, 20 trillion dollars. I know that sounds crazy, but that is Elon's vision. If you're going to be a $10 trillion company, you don't do buybacks. Like it's just not like, you need to grow. You need to put that money to as much, you need to allocate the capital to as many successful use cases to be able to achieve that valuation. And so buybacks would seem contrary to the overarching mission. How about Tesla acquires XAI? I don't hate that. Granted, XAI is worth like 150 billion. Is XAI really worth 150 billion? Probably not. Like, XAI's valuation is fake to me, just like OpenAI's valuation is fake to me. Like, none of these companies are actually worth what they're worth on paper. They can grow into it over the long term, but if it's worth that much on paper and Tesla spends, whatever, half cash, half stock, whatever they make, like they would have to do it through dilution because they don't have even 75 billion in stock. That would be a bit absurd, because XAI nor X have proved that they are worth anywhere near 150 billion. Neither has OpenAI. OpenAI hasn't proved they're worth $300 billion, but that value is what the VCs agree to. And I believe over time, they think, hey, these companies will grow so much that eventually this 300 billion will look cheap. But if you're talking about M&A, especially in the context of Tesla, I think it would be a disservice to shareholders to spend that type of a premium on something that's just obviously not worth that much money. Like, we know all the AI companies are overvalued right now, especially the private ones, but they will grow into the valuation, hopefully. So now taking an equity stake, though, I'm not opposed to that. Like putting 5 billion, 2 billion, like that makes a lot more sense to me. Granted, you have to ask yourself, what are they going to get from that also? Because it's not like XAI is making a ton of money. Like, Grok is not a cash cow or anything like that. Neither is Twitter. So I think that if it's a question of licensing Grok, I mean, they could easily just, I'm sure, have a partnership versus an equity stake to be able to do that. The time to really invest in XAI was years ago, dude, when XAI was worth 18 billion. Then they could have benefited and they could have marked up their equity on paper. But I have no idea for the life of me why Tesla did not invest in XAI in June last year when it was worth $18 billion. Bitcoin back to 87,000. But I don't know if now is the best valuation to do it. X is worth over 100 billion. So X is worth, XAI is worth 113, and then they bought X is worth 45. So when you put those together, or no, X is worth 83, and Twitter is worth 45. So it's about 120 billion is the market cap technically. So when you just put those together, that's what you get. Why is crypto pumping? I have no idea. If anyone has a theory, let me know. But all I can say is Bitcoin seems to be slowly but surely decoupling from the legacy indice moves, and it's been doing that for the past couple months, to be honest. And if this thing actually gets back to 100,000 while the market doesn't recover, then I mean, who knows, bro? Maybe the market's thinking we're going to get back into a quantitative easing environment, and eventually the Fed's going to save us, and we're going to print a lot of money, and M2 supply is going to go up, and that's what's helping Bitcoin. But it does feel like it's starting to decouple a little bit more. No one is trusting the dollar. They're moving to other assets. That's a great point as well. I mean, yeah, that's another reason, right? This is why gold's going up. USD over JPY going down dramatically. The Russian currency started to go up a little bit over the weekend. Like, we've got some weird stuff going on with FX and the US dollar. And I imagine Trump wants to get the US dollar to be stronger again. It doesn't have to be as strong as it was back in January, but it's pretty weak compared to where it was even a year ago. So when you got the dumping of the dollar, dumping of the bonds, and dumping of stocks, crypto and gold seems to be where people are going. I read on X that Trump says he wants Bitcoin to go back to 150K by September 1st. Well, Trump wants a lot of things. I also want a lot of things. Actually, I just want one thing. I just want the stock market to be like green again. But I don't know if I'm going to get what I want. And I definitely don't know if Trump's going to get what he wants. Look, 150K is not crazy to me. It's just like, does Bitcoin go to 150K because everything's pumping and then everyone gets the benefit? Or does it go to 150K as a rebuke of everything that's going on in the traditional financial system in regards to tariffs and monetary policy? I don't know. But if it gets there, it's going to get there either in a positive way or a negative way. I guess if you're bullish Bitcoin, you don't care because you think it's going to get there. So I don't know. I don't know how this is going to end up playing out. China's been buying insane amounts of gold. Yep, we talked about that. Oh, Sailor's definitely buying more tomorrow. Maybe it's pumping on Sailor. Sailor tweeted today his iconic chart, so we know that he's buying more. Dude, Sailor, I mean, again, he's looking more and more like someone who might end up pulling it off. He really is starting to, I mean, the one asset this year that has not absolutely been demolished is Bitcoin. I mean, if you literally bought it at the top, then yeah, you're probably not the happiest, but people are calling on this thing to go to 50, 40K. There's just way too many buyers that step in when it starts to actually see some downside momentum. Granted, markets are not horrible this year. The S&P is down 8%, but we did get back to 4,800 on the S&P 5, which is insane. Like the fact that we got there January 2022 levels, but we've recovered about 10% since then. It's just a question now of, can we get back closer to that 5,700, 6,000 range that everyone wants to get to? The Qs are falling. Where's the futures? Up. Yeah, we're falling. There you go. They were recovering a little bit. See, this makes Bitcoin even more impressive that it's actually going up while everything's falling. Yeah, there you go. Tesla now down 2%. Nvidia down 1%. This one continuing to take a hit. The S&P 500 down about 0.5% right now. Chamath had a take on Nvidia. Let's listen to what he had to say. It wasn't super bearish, but it was one of those takes about the whole Nvidia China ban that we're dealing with currently right now.
I think we can all do the math. About 47% of all of Nvidia's revenue goes to China and Chinese related countries. And I think when you peel back this onion, what you will find is a whole raft of companies that were stood up to buy these NVIDIA GPUs to essentially act as a way station for China. And I think that is the big problem. Let's have a thought starter. If 47% of all of the AI capability and horsepower is being shipped to 3 Asian countries, where do you think the apps that require that amount of horsepower live? Is there a cursor of Bhutan that we did not know? Is there a great shopping app in Cambodia that's come out of nowhere that's AI powered? I think the answer is no. Every single time we have an advance in the United States, how is it that Alibaba shows up with something incredible, DeepSeek shows up with something better? At every turn and at every step of AI, they are at the same rate or one step ahead. To be honest with you, I think the real problem that we have is that NVIDIA is not doing what is in the best interest of the United States. You have an American company that has been working around the guidelines at every turn to try to land silicon into the hands of China. Late last year, they introduced this thing called this H20 that was explicitly designed for China and to be compliant with US rules at the time, which again, gives these guys substantial performance. this is a case where you have plausible deniability. I sell something to a Singaporean registered company, plausible deniability. What am I supposed to do? You can't expect me to audit it. I think that's what NVIDIA's answer will be to this question. But what is the real expectation? At a minimum, the United States should have a mechanism to understand it. It is implausible that if you did 1 or 2 layers of work, you would not find that most of this traffic is being used by Chinese organizations.
Okay, so his main issue is that China's getting a ton of the NVIDIA chips. I think that's nothing new. We all know that. That's why the H20 was created in the first place. The question is, do we want NVIDIA supplying those chips, or do we want Chinese companies like Huawei developing the technology to supply them internally as well? And if the H20 is not as good as a Blackwell, then I think we would want NVIDIA to give them lesser quality chips, but still chips regardless, because if NVIDIA doesn't do it, someone else is going to do it. Like the idea that China's not going to get the chips and that they're never going to have the technology to be able to create that is ludicrous. They're going to eventually create it. It's just a question of if an American company profits off of it or not. But regardless of what I feel, it goes to the broader thesis where if the United States tries to use NVIDIA as like a reason for why this trade war can only intensify and why they need to continuously be against China, and this indefinite ban becomes a more definite ban in terms of the H20 chips, then yeah, NVIDIA loses 15% of their revenue this year, which is going to suck. Good thing is, I think if the demand story is that big for NVIDIA, they'll be able to get that demand somewhere else. And they'll be able to, still sell the amount of chips they need to sell as long as CapEx doesn't fall off a cliff in regards to all the tariff volatility. So I don't think China's the biggest story. And like if the new normal is American tech companies cannot sell to China, okay, let's accept that new normal. Let's re-rate all these stocks. Maybe NVIDIA has to fall another 5-10% because of that, but let's let that be the reality and let's move forward so that the market can move forward. And it is what it is. But this whole idea of not knowing what's going to happen is, I think, what's freaking out markets even more. Of just like, all right, so do we get to sell into China? Do we not get to sell into China? What's the deal look like? And how is this all going to play out? By the way, I think the reason futures just took a leg down is because of this Fox News headline. There is progress on trade deal with Japan, but the deal isn't seen as imminent. Progress on trade deal with Japan, but the deal isn't seen as imminent. Also, Lutnick remains a key part of the trade negotiations with Japan. He was part of the last week's meeting with the Japanese trade minister that took place at the White House. That's why I think futures just took their leg down. Tesla was down about 2% right here, which again is so annoying because 3 hours ago, the headline was that the Japan deal seems like it's going to come tomorrow. So, I mean, most of these headlines at this point, like you can't trust any of them. And if the market reacts to them and you're trading, then you've got to be ready to buy or sell at a moment's notice because these headlines can switch pretty quickly. And obviously then stocks can reflect the change in sentiment right there. Is TLT dumping? TLT, where is that at? Yeah, that's after. Yeah, yields are going up. So TLT right here, 0.72%. That one's getting a little bit of a dump given yields are higher. SoFi is up 3.2%. So SoFi is up, I think, because of the loan platform deal they secured last week, another $3.2 billion bucks. Seems relatively bullish. I would hope the street gives a multiple on this. I think based on the people that I've been talking to around this loan platform deal, my interpretation is that SoFi is starting to pivot the company. And this is kind of like their AIP moment. And they're trying to say, hey, the loan platform is going to be like our next big driver of growth. This is a little weird to me because that's not what the SoFi thesis was even 7 months ago. But now apparently the thesis is loan platform. It's like, okay, this is the new thesis, I guess. That's fine. Companies can pivot. However, I think we need to hear Noto pound the table around why this loan platform is going to make them a top 15 technology company in the next decade. And on earnings in 2 weeks, he has an opportunity to really explain why the loan platform is so special. But for the street to get excited about the loan platform, not the Galileo, not AWS of FinTech, but now this loan platform thing, I mean, it's possible. I just think I think Noda's got to really capitalize on the opportunity. If this is their moment of like, the pivot that maybe shareholders have been waiting for a while. So hopefully that's the case. And if that is, then maybe SoFi makes its way back into the $15 range. AIP moment is a hard stretch. That is what people have been saying, that the loan See, I agree with that as well, dude. I think they brought the loan platform out of their ass. That's my opinion. My opinion is 2 quarters ago, they literally reached in their ass and they said, hey, here's something that maybe the street will get excited about. It's a great idea. Not saying the loan platform is bad. I just think it is easily commoditized. Other banks can engage in it. And more importantly, why does anyone care that much about like that does not scream to me top 15 tech company because of a freaking loan platform. Like I'm not buying it, dude. I'm not as like I know a lot of people are getting super excited about it. I think a lot of people are drinking the Kool-Aid here. I don't know what, and I was talking with Steve about it over the weekend. He was just like, why are we excited about a loan platform? This is the revolutionary AWS of fintech thing that's going to take over the world. It's like underwriting loans that you don't have to have on your balance sheet using some AI. Like it's just not exciting to me at all. It's just not. It really isn't. But I do think it is a narrative changer. And if Noto is good at communication, like he should pivot the entire company on. Like that's what Karp did in June of 2023. He pivoted everything to AIP, literally everything. And then they put up the growth to justify why the pivot made sense. But before they had the growth, I mean, you guys remember the interviews where Karp was like, we don't have a pricing strategy? A lot of people were bearish when he said that because they're like, these guys have no idea what they're doing. But in Karp's opinion, he was just like, I'm going to communicate that we pivoted the company. We'll figure the rest of it out, but I need to get the world to believe that this pivot makes sense. And then they figured the rest of it out. I think if Noto wants the loan platform to be that type of thing for them, that's what he needs to do. Do I have faith that Noto is going to be able to execute the communication of that pivot? Not really. But I think they have a shot to do it. And if they do, then, that would be bullish for SoFi. Do you still think SoFi can get over to 25 end of year? I think more so 20 is reasonable. I think 25 was a really good macro. We now are in a very crappy macro. I think 20 is even stretching it given the nature of the crappy macro. By the way, that's the same thing for Hood. So I'm not trying to be biased Hood over SoFi. I think Hood's going to have a really tough time to get back to 60. So I'm not saying Hood can get to 60 while SoFi stays at 10. I mean, I think it's going to be really hard for all fintechs to get the boost that they need, given the tariff volatility. So I still think 20 is possible for SoFi, but I just think Noto's got to nail the pivot on this loan platform really well. Or Galileo has to surprise us, and AWS of fintech has to start materializing, just like Robinhood surprised us with their prediction markets and how much that's growing. It's just like this other vertical has to really start picking up the growth, and if they can do that, that would be exciting. But we got to see if that ends up playing out. They also get crypto. Yeah, I mean, Noto did talk on that podcast that they might get crypto back. So if they do get crypto back, that would be potentially very bullish for them as well. Noto said in the last earnings call that it has been successful and they might just go more that route since it makes sense. I have no problem with them pivoting to the loan platform, even if they pulled it out of their ass the past 2 quarters. I mean, Palantir pulled AIP out of their ass in June 2023, right? AI started trending, ChatGPT started going viral. In comes AIP out of nowhere, right? So it is okay for companies to do that. It's just a question of, can you nail the pivot and get the public to agree that this is the new trajectory and then inevitably put up the growth, even if it takes you a year to really see the numbers, which it took Palantir about a year to show the numbers. They got profitability. That was the important thing. And then they started showing actual year-over-year growth above 30%. I think that could happen for SoFi, but it depends on if Noto can actually nail it in that way. If SoFi started offering business accounts, it could be a game changer. Dude, I've been meaning to leave Bank of America and go to SoFi, but I have a business account. And so that's why I've not gone to SoFi. Otherwise, I would have been there years ago. So the business account would have been a game changer for me as well to go to SoFi. And by the way, Robinhood's not coming out with business banking either. So I'm not going to be going to Robinhood's banking account because there's no business accounts. If they have business accounts, I would switch. But I don't know when they're going to do that. And if they end up doing it before SoFi, that would be not the best look on SoFi. But yeah, I've been waiting for business banking from both of them for a while now. Cameron says, market addicts. It's Easter Sunday, and here we are. It's Easter Sunday, and here we indeed are. Did everyone have a good Easter Sunday? I think we'll end out the show here. We've been going long enough. I hope everyone had a good Easter Sunday. If you celebrate it, you got some time to relax, spend time with your family, eat some good food. I will be doing Toronto this weekend, or Saturday. So if anyone wants to join, again, you can still join the Google form right here. I'm going to be sending out the details probably tomorrow to everyone who joined the Telegram group. So it should be fun. Excited to visit Canada. It's my first time since 2018. Last time I went, 6 years ago. So it's been a while. But we'll be back to Toronto later this week. Who do you have winning the NBA chip? I wanted to say the Lakers, but now I think the Lakers are, and it's not just because game one was bad. I think the OKC Thunder blew out the Grizzlies by freaking 51 points today. I don't know if the Lakers have the firepower to win the championship, bro. Compared to all these other teams, I don't know. I don't know who's going to win. I don't know. I wanted Lakers to win, though. I'm still rooting for the Lakers, but I don't know if it's going to play out like that. Okay, the Dubs are not winning the championship. All you Warriors fans need to stop drinking the Kool-Aid. The Dubs are not winning the championship. You guys gotta. We're not having no play-in team win the championship. I pick OKC Thunder over the Dubs. I don't think the Dubs are gonna pull it off, bro. I don't think Dubs are gonna pull it off. I think the Celtics have a better chance than the Dubs. Lakers in 6. I hope so. I'll probably engage in some of the Robinhood betting. Again, for those that haven't seen the prediction markets, they have loaded it up with like a ton of stuff, bro. Ton of stuff. So, championship, Eastern Conference Finals, Western Conference Finals, Los Angeles, Minnesota, all that stuff. So right now, for the Lakers, it's 46 cents. Minnesota's in the lead. Almost 50-50. But I think I think it's gonna sell tens and tens and tens of millions of contracts on the NBA playoffs. And they've got hockey. Apparently hockey has started. So NHL playoffs, all that stuff is gonna be good for Hood. Mitch, did you get a new phone? No. I did not get a new phone. My phone is still cracked badly. By the way, there was a headline that Tim Cook called Trump the other day, and he told him how much iPhone prices would go up if he imposed tariffs. And apparently the source was like, Trump was listening to him and like diligently was paying attention to what Tim Cook was saying, and Cook was trying to be like, dude, like it's gonna be bad. It's not like, if we want to make it in America, it's gonna be expensive. So maybe that's also the reason why Trump came out and he said, hey, we're not going to have reciprocal tariffs on like iPhones and laptops. But still, Tim Cook's trying to convince him. Here's a video of Tim Cook from 10 years ago talking about why China is so important to their manufacturing.
There's a confusion about China, and let me at least give you my opinion. The popular conception is that companies come to China because of low labor cost. I'm not sure what part of China they go to, but the truth is China stopped being the low labor cost country many years ago. The reason is because of the skill, the quantity of skill in one location, and the type of skill it is. Like the products we do require really advanced tooling, and the precision that you have to have in tooling and working with the materials that we do are state of the art. And the tooling skill is very deep here. You know, in the US, you could have a meeting of tooling engineers and I'm not sure we could fill the room. In China, you could fill multiple football fields. It's that vocational expertise is very deep, very, very deep here. There's a
So I believe Tim Cook when he says that, but I also think the cost of labor is what he really cares about more than anything. Obviously, the vocational expertise in China is fundamentally different than the United States because they have a manufacturing DNA, but it costs them $3 an hour versus 15 to 20. So I think he's sounding more intellectual than it is. The answer is he doesn't want to pay quintuple the cost for labor versus in China. And I think that's why they're so deep in China. By the way, take a look at the US dollar, bro. Falling 1%. Holy crap. 98.60, down 0.79% on the day. My goodness. The USD is not supposed to be falling like this. That's probably why Bitcoin's up. Wow, Bitcoin 87, 80. It's clearly above 87 right there. 87.1. Yeah, I think that's your answer, folks. That's why Bitcoin's up today. Dollar falls by 1%, Bitcoin goes up by 2.2%. People are selling the dollar, they're buying Bitcoin, they're buying gold. Simple. That's how this is playing out. And why are they selling the dollar? Because they don't have any trust in US currencies right now, because they think a lot of it, for better or for worse, is going to be inflated away by these insane tariffs that are currently in place. Now, again, the reason I hear that and don't get super bearish is because I think Trump can change that when he gets rid of the stupid tariffs once he gets a deal done. The problem is no one knows when these deals are going to get done. The 30-year selling off right here, 4.849. I mean, if you round up, you get closer to 4.9 on that. And then the 10-year, you get close to 4.4 if you round up. If these two tick back to where they were last week, that's not going to be good. I mean, dude, if the dollar and bonds continue to sell off like they did last week and the stock market goes red, Trump's going to have to delay the tariffs again or do some type of 90-day pause again, something to get the bond market to stop freaking out. Or we're going to have to announce like a preliminary deal with Japan, even if the deal's not negotiated yet. Like, he's going to need some piece of good news. Wow. Bitcoin's still going. I mean, in this case, Bitcoin going green is kind of bearish because it's not going green because the market's going green. It's going green almost because people don't trust the dollar. I mean, I think that is the reason it's going good. People don't trust the dollar, and Bitcoin and gold are getting some. Bitcoin's actually doing what people have said it was supposed to be doing for so long, which is quite incredible to see it playing out like this. Whereas Robinhood, you know, that's one of the good things about Hood. It has the crypto part associated with it. So even though, yeah, Robinhood's up 3%. Even though Robinhood should be down because the markets are down, Bitcoin is their highest margin, what do you call it? Product. It's their highest take rate product. So, I mean, there's a world where Bitcoin is the hedge and Robinhood as a proxy benefits from that hedge. Simply because if people are going to be trading crypto and they do it on Robinhood, then Robinhood's going to make a ton of money off that regardless. So yeah, Robinhood right here, up a little bit right now after hours. Where MicroStrategy should be up at least like 3 to 4%. MSTR, yeah, that's up 3%. MicroStrategy, 326.40. That one going green as well. The dollar credit rating is going to be announced soon. I think Fitch gave some preliminary. Oh no, they did bond ratings last week, right? Fitch and Moody's, they're probably going to come out with credit ratings on the dollar soon. Yeah, they're probably going to be bearish. I mean, why wouldn't they be? Like, why wouldn't they be at this point? Coinbase is up 2% as well. Again, all of this changes if Trump just walks back the tariffs. So that is why I continue to think we're going to be okay. I know it's hard to feel like it's going to be okay, but I don't know. There's going to be a big week. Maybe we get some deals done. Maybe we get some China progress. Maybe we actually get some momentum to the upside. Maybe we get some clarity on Navarro, Bessent, Elon's relationship, what's going on there. But there's a lot of different storylines. I think the number one thing that could ruin this week, much less ruin the stock market for the rest of the year, is if Trump replaces J-Powell and unilaterally fires him. I think that's going to be very troubling to markets. And I'm not sure we can easily recover from that. And yeah, we might get a rate cut, but at what cost if he has to literally get rid of Jerome Powell, you know? So I don't think it's the way it should go, but he might be hell-bent on doing it. And I think it would be a hell of a thing to see what J Powell does. Because, like, does J Powell willingly leave or does he stay? Like it would just be so unprecedented to see someone like Trump actually do this. Take a look at this. This was 7 years ago when he actually appointed Jay Powell. Obviously, things have changed, but this is his guy. He appointed him back in 2018.
There are a few decisions more important than nominating leaders of integrity and good judgment to hold trusted positions in public office. And few of those trusted positions are more important than the chairman of the Federal Reserve. Accordingly, it is my pleasure and my honor to announce my nomination of Jerome Powell to be the next chairman of the Federal Reserve. Congratulations, Jay.
Thank you, Mr. President. 7 years ago. 7 years ago, he was a fan. And now he's not. Now he is not. Rob, thank you for the $5 super chat. What is the potential value of the Golden Dome contract? When will it be announced? And do you think Palantir's a lock for it? I have no idea to any of those questions. And the number one reason I have no idea is because Elon denied that SpaceX is bidding for the Golden Dome contract on Friday. So the headline was SpaceX, Anduril, Palantir are putting in a joint bid. And then Elon said, this is not true. SpaceX has not put in any bid, which then leads me to believe, is Palantir even putting in a bid with Anduril? Because the whole point was Palantir, Anduril, and SpaceX are working together on that. So I truly have no idea. Even if they were putting in a bid, I don't know how much it's worth or when it would be announced. But yeah, Elon did say that is not a true thing. So in particular, that headline just might not be exactly what we thought it was going to be. Granted, I do think the Golden Dome should be built by modern defense contractors, not legacy ones. And I don't think Boeing and Raytheon can pull it off like a Tesla, Palantir, and Anduril, SpaceX. So we got to see, but hopefully Palantir is in the running for that. Regardless, I think government growth is going to be good. So I think this quarter is going to be strong for them. Rocket Lab, yeah, Rocket Lab could be in the, maybe Rocket Lab's in the running for that as well. But based on what Elon said, this is what he said on April 17th. He said this is not true. So yeah, he was saying they're not bidding for it. All right, cool. I think that's it. I think that's it for the day. I think it's going to be a wild week, bro. I think this is going to be a wild freaking week because I think we're going to get a lot of these tariff headlines, and some of them might be positive, some of them might be not positive. And if bonds and the US dollar keep selling off, I mean, that's another nuance we have to worry about in terms of the credit markets as well. All right, cool. I think that is it. I'll be live for the market open as always. Hope everyone had a good Easter Sunday. If anyone engages in the 420 substance, I hope you had a good 420 as well today, given today is 420. Hopefully everyone had a good Friday and you guys relaxed. And yeah, I learned a lot about North Korea and World War II this weekend. So dude, I'm gonna become so annoying now. I'm gonna become like a history buff. I'm just gonna like randomly talk about different historical facts as I like ingest all this information. But like I'm really learning more about World War II. Like I'm gonna become that guy who's like, so did you know that the Treaty of Versailles, yada yada yada. I'm just gonna be that guy. I'm getting interested in World War II, bro. I'm really getting interested in how the heck we had a world war and how the world came to be what it is today. So yeah, I'll be learning as much as I can about this stuff. The obscure fact guy, yeah, exactly. But I do think it gives you a lot of context to understand why Russia is the way it is. Like I understand so much more what's going on with Russia and Ukraine because of just like learning a little bit more about World War II and like the foundations it created for the modern economy that we have currently right now, and you know what incentives are and what agendas are being deployed. So I think there hopefully is some market commentary to learn from it as well. All right, cool. Good stuff. Thank everybody for being here. Appreciate it. We'll be back tomorrow on the market open, getting back to a normal week. at least in terms of all 5 days of trading being open. Will it actually be normal? I don't think any week in 2025 has been normal, but we'll be back to opening up the markets. And then Canada this week. I'll be back on Friday. And or I'll be going there on Thursday night. I'll be there Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And we'll do the meetup in Toronto as well. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you all. We'll see you guys tomorrow on the Market Open. Bye, everybody.